Hi everyone, this is Mr. Harden of Harden's Manga, here to tell you about Wistoria Wand and Sword Volume 1. Our cover shows our lead of the story, Will Serfort, rocking an awesome cape and big sword slashing true. Plus, you can see little magic symbols in the white background, which is really fun. The design likely feels familiar for those who have read Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? As it's the same creator, and Will might remind you of a certain white haired boy as well. Will in the opening pages, though, is shown to be a magicless boy in a magic driven society, and will be tearing it up in this volume 1 in 4 hefty chapters to see how he can operate on the day to day. Chapter 1 jumps straight into Will's life with big hunkin' panels that show his prowess in the dungeon to make it in this magic driven world. Then, though, almost abruptly, we jump to the school that Will attends, where his professor, Edward Seraphins, calls him forward to apply magic, but Will can't. The professor is important to the story and is a man of stature in the magic world and is carried through his design. As a man who looks like he's been troubled by magic for many years, with long, scragged hair and an overall dark design. After the display of, well, nothing, the classroom erupts, and we also get another introduction in Colette Loyer, Will's friend and a beauty to boot, with a very warm design. She will show up big as a supporter of Will throughout the story. Again, very quickly, we also get introductions of another important character in Cyan Ulster, a loudmouth hater of Will. He has a design that, like the fire spell he cast in lieu of Will, feels sporadic and angry. With a slew of character introductions over, we get back to the lesson of the day for Will, and that magic reigns supreme in this world. The author does a great job in the coming panels describing how each character feels about Will, as the Professor Edward almost painfully states that those without magic do not belong at the school. Shortly after, Cyan approaches and berates the fact Will needs to go to the dungeon so often to make up credits for school. But honestly, the light that is Coilette, she sticks up for Will, and Will is smooth with his compliments back to her. This is a moment where those familiar with the author's other work in Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon will feel familiarity in the writing, which is by no way a bad thing, as they clearly know how to write a slightly airy aura around some flirty conversation. Seeing Will call her cute in a flustered panel or two of Coilette is delightful. Back to the story, though, we get a full page explanation of how the world operates to help the Magia Vander, the 5 most powerful mages in the world. It feels grandiose, and it's something incredibly important to Will, because his childhood friend, Elfaria, a beautiful girl, and the youngest Magia Vander, is currently one of the 5, and as a little kid, he made a promise to stand beside her. So noble, so cool, and so currently out of reach for the man with no magic. Bill isn't backing down, though, and even more is getting yelled at by another professor named Werkner, a man who cares about Will's well being and clearly troubled by how often Will is attempting to go deeper into the dungeon we saw at the beginning of the volume, even going as far to remind Will how impossibly difficult it will be for him to continue to climb ranks in order to reach his next goal next to Alfaria. It's an interesting segment and fun to see the art around facial features of Will. As around Werkner, it's like his guard is down, and we get way more relaxed facial expressions. Werkner explains he needs 4 more credits by the end of the week to continue to pass, even giving him knowledge of a beast to slay. It's nice of him, but unfortunately, Scion overheard, creating a race to the beast. Taking a moment as well to really appreciate the architectural art in this series, as a full page is provided to the Abyss Gates that look insanely cool and highly detailed. Upon entering the dungeon, though, Scion is already present, and instead of running into the intended monster, they get smashed by a 10 credit evil sentinel, who is absolutely terrifying. Will has a moment of doubt to even save Scion due to him bullying him, but eventually he jumps into action, and the intensity of the fight is amazing to read. So much so, going into too much detail of how awesome these panels are does the series a disservice. The fight flows naturally and ultimately comes to an end with Will decimating the creature, ending the first chapter and awarding 10 credits to the best boy around. Chapter 2 provides more information on how to become a Magiavander, and the fact there is a whole level prior called the Upper Institute that everyone currently introduced in the story is trying to get into. But Will is the only one in the remedial course learning this, and he might not even graduate due to his low amount of credits. Coilette finds him after class to lift his spirits, and Scion, in the same scene of uplifting, is stealing credit for killing the monster from the end of the last chapter, even seeing a new face of disgust from him for being saved by Will. After this, it immediately jumps to Professor Edward, attempting to get Will expelled for daring to be better than a mage, which also introduces us to the head of the school, Headmistress Cauldron, an older woman with a very calculated feeling to her. She says no to outright getting rid of him, but will allow Edward to test Will. And oh, it'll be a showdown for sure. But first, we get treated to some more knowledge being dropped on the world Will comes from, with the study session in the library with Coilette. Humans, dwarves, and elves are a part of this world, but only humans came from the world. Humans and elves can use magic, dwarves can't. The study session is cut short as Professor Edward approaches, bringing Will to the spell hall, where his test will begin. The test is simple in that it is just to land one blow on Edward. If Will doesn't, though, he must leave the school. The fight is fairly one sided at first, as Will gets tossed by basic black magic spells with fire and can't land any hits, with Edward casting a simple barrier spell. Also, a stop and stare moment happens, with a full page given to Edward casting magic down onto Will, and it's beautiful. When defeat looks inevitable, though, Will bounces back and even announces in his head his love for Elfaria, which, besides being super wholesome, gives him some power to bounce back. Plus, Coilette drops his sword, so now Will actively has some fighting power. Through some very vivid artwork, the fight continues on until Will leaps into the air above Edward's defense and drops down to land a blow. It's incredibly drawn, and the action snaps up until the blow is delivered, awarding Will 5 points in spell work as he passes out in Coilette's arms, ending Chapter 2. Chapter 3 sees Will in a working uniform delivering papers where the dwarves are. Plus, we get to see on the front of the paper a very beautiful Elfaria. We learn Elfaria has a job out, so of course Will is ready to tackle it. But more importantly, we meet his roommate, Rosti, a boy whose job is to build magical items with the slender build and long hair. He comes off as relaxed and helpful as he provides new tools for Will so he can complete the task for Elfaria, which sees him on the fourth floor of the dungeon hunting ice monsters, even saving a girl named Iris, a student with pigtails who we will see is mighty important in this volume. The two begin to talk as Iris is thankful to be saved and announces she is in the dungeon for the same reason as Will. But as her search spell can't find any additional ice monsters, she's about to give up. Then Will gives us a reminder that while he might not have talent with magic, he has learned more about the dungeon than his peers. As he grabs pieces from the ground, he announces a colossal ice monster is nearby. How nearby? Well, enough that it comes crashing down from the ceiling, ending Chapter 3. Chapter 4, we see now that the colossal ice monster is known as a Frostrex, and its design is truly monstrous, which the artist has delivered in the first volume. Between this and the Evil Sentinel, it's hard to tell which looks the coolest. But what we can say is that Will jumps into action for both, as the opening of this chapter sees Will not only saving Iris, but fighting the Frostrex. The fight doesn't have many dialogue boxes, but that's for the best, as it moves quick and ends exactly how you want it, with Will decimating the Frostrex, leaving us with Iris stating how she will report things back to the tower. Iris is then shown at the tower, relaying her report to all 5 Magiavanders. It's an interesting part, as up to this point, we have really only seen Elfaria. Iris, though, seems to be on a mission in the school to recruit people for the tower, even giving her recommendation for Will. Many dismiss this as who would want a magicless person amongst the Magiavander? But we'll check again after the Grand Magic Festival, giving us as readers a reason to be excited for Volume 2 as we end this volume with Alfaria still believing in Will and is excited to have him by her side soon. Wistoria Wand and Sword Volume 1 is sweet like honey. The art during fights are smooth, layered, and even shine like gold, while the story is thick and full of lore to continually explore. A series easy to recommend for those who prefer light novels. With its complex magic system and lore with so many open holes, it wants you to pick up its Volume 2 as soon as possible to fill them. Hopefully, everyone will pick the series up, as it's a great time with the ton going on for it, including a hit anime. So, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Let us know in the comments below your favorite moment. Mine was for sure the Evil Sentinel. And as always, this has been Mr. Harden of Harden's Manga. And remember, manga is for everyone.